All right, we're back from a brief hiatus. Georgia had a bye week, so we took one off too. Georgia comes into the cocktail party a 16.5 point favorite. Florida fans are flying high. They have a glimmer of hope. They have DJ Lagway to, turn things around. Billy Napier's job is safe for at least now. We were, at the beginning of the year, I think in our predictions, we thought he might be fired by the time we face
Georgia
off with
game.
him.
Yeah.
He may or may not still have a job at the end of the year. Who knows? But Georgia still heavy favorite. Most of the time, the better team usually wins in this game. It's not often that you get major upsets, especially via the Georgia side. I mean, you have 97-07. That's really about it. And then you have the 2014 game where Florida upset us. Really, there's not like 2020 wasn't really an upset. I mean, if you go back and you look at the game, it wasn't an upset. So, initial thoughts on the game.
And usually, historically, and I'm not sure this is going to be correct this year, the team that runs the ball for the most yards usually ends up winning the game. And of course, you can say that for a lot of football games, but that may be a stat that's not as important on dictating the winner of this game. But I would like to see Georgia be able to run the ball a little bit more consistently. I know we're supposed to get Ratledge back. Offensive line looked a lot better. I think that was a good place to build off of. They looked a lot better at Texas. So I'd like to see a little bit more of a run game to prove that we can run it. I'd like to see our receivers not have so many drops. That would be great. Try to, of course, sometimes you talk about it and it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's only so much you can do. But if we can limit the turnovers, have a running game, we don't even have to outrush. And I think that's going to be Florida's game. I think they're probably going to try to run it a little bit more against Georgia. Right. So on the defensive side, those are the things on the offensive side. On the defensive, I would like to see the same level of play we saw last time. And hopefully we're healthier I know we lost a defensive lineman. He was a freshman. But I think we're stronger on the defensive line than we have been all year. And linebackers got a little more health. First half, we're going to be missing, unless it's overturned. That's still outstanding, I guess. Aguero, Dan Jackson. But I don't expect them to be able to play on the second half. But Florida, they have a puncher's chance. They're better than I thought. They seem to be playing with a little bit more intensity. But I still say Georgia should win this game by double digits pretty easily. They should, if they play the type of game they're capable of.
Well, and that's been the problem all year is, you think Georgia should win a game fairly easily, and we're white-knuckling it to the very end. And that's a lot to do with not only the defense not having good games, but the offense just not being able to put together a full 4 quarters of a ball game.
Yep.
And, I really did. I thought that Texas would be the game to where it's all put together, and it wasn't. And really the storyline coming out of that was Georgia's defense.
Yes.
DJ Lagway, I mean, and I'll get into it in a minute, but that Kentucky game, he only had like 7 completions for over like 200 yards. You're able to confuse the kid. I mean, he's a freshman. He's only gotten to play so many games in big-time college football. And given that Kirby and Glenn Schumann have a week to prepare for him, I feel like we'll have a decent game plan. But, if Georgia can go out there and put together a good 4 quarters on offense, then I feel fine. I don't expect Georgia's defense to play like they did against Texas. It's a different team. Styles make fights. And if it was Graham Mertz, I would say the defense has a really good shot. But with Lagway's legs, it makes it a little bit concerning, but still not enough to where you go, Georgia's in trouble here.
I would agree with that. But you don't see from Florida, this year as much mental collapses, and just dumb stuff that we've come accustomed to seeing Florida do. I don't know. I haven't watched them, but it seems to me like that you don't see two players with the same jersey number.
Oh, they did that against Tennessee 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they did. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah. We'll get back to the game. I wanted to add this, and then we'll go. We'll talk about some other stuff outside of the game. But right now, I think they all like Billy Napier down in Florida. The players like Billy Napier. The people down in Central Florida who somehow miraculously have basements, they don't. So they're fighting for him to keep him to have a job. And I think they really like him and they're responding. Billy Napier hasn't lost the locker room, which is huge. And I hate saying this. It will drive me crazy to say it, but Florida is a tough team. They got a little bit of grit to them. So in that aspect, kudos to them, tip of the cap. I don't think you're going to out physical Georgia, but I mean, anything's happen. In this SEC iteration, anything can happen. But at the beginning of the season, whenever we previewed this game, we thought Florida would come into Jacksonville with nothing, like no hope at all. Just show up and get your ass kicked and go back to Gainesville. That still might happen. I think we're both on the same page that that's going to happen. But Florida fans at least have a little bit of hope. They can suspend the disbelief a little bit with how this team's playing. So it makes it interesting. But also, here's the other thing. Very similar to last year. Almost identical to last year. Do you remember any of that going in?
No, not going into no. I don't guess so.
Going into the game, I think they had 3 losses, maybe 2. I can't quite remember that. I think it was 2 losses. They had a puncher's chance of the SEC East title, and they won a game that they weren't supposed to win before they got into the bye week. Georgia hadn't really put together, 4-quarter ball game. They weren't peaking, and then all of a sudden, we go in there, and that first quarter, it was ugly. It wasn't pretty. And then the second quarter and into the third, Georgia just laid the wood on them, and that was it. That was in the fourth quarter. By mid-third quarter, it didn't even matter anymore. And Florida fans were, it was all teal green on their side. So it feels very odd that it's the exact same kind of game going into it. And hopefully, my hope is that, that it plays out the same way. It'd be very nice if it could. I would really appreciate it. So, yeah.
Well, maybe I should go and do what I did against Texas, because this team, Georgia's team, and it's not just Georgia, all of college football, like you said, it's a very schizophrenic. You don't know what team's going to show up. If Georgia goes down to the swamp and has, which I don't think is going to happen, and has a performance kind of like they did against Kentucky, this could be a knife fight in the fourth quarter. That's the type of scenario that I think. And what did Kentucky do? They punched Georgia in the mouth, and they kept getting Carson Beck uncomfortable, right? And if Florida is able to do that, we may be in for a long fight. But I hope Georgia's turning the corner. Looks more like the team on defense anyway that we saw against Texas, and maybe we finally put some stuff together on offense consistently.
Right. All right. Well, more on that in a couple of minutes, but let's do some house cleaning things real quick. So it was rumored, I don't know. Well, it was rumored a long time ago that this was going to happen. There were arguments for and against it. I'm for it. I know you're probably not, maybe. I don't know. But because of the renovations, what the Jaguars are doing to the stadium to make it look like basically a spaceship in the middle of Florida, they're not going to be able to have the 2026 and the 2027 games in Jacksonville. So it came out today that both sides agreed to have it in 2026 in Atlanta and in 2027 in Tampa. I knew it was probably going to happen given what happened with Georgia and Georgia Tech. The writing was on the wall there. That game going into the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, was it next year?
Yeah.
So Tech's making $10 million. Both these teams are making they're making a bunch of money. I don't know how much it is.
I don't either.
To have this game in Jacksonville. They're not going to – the talk of it ever moving outside Jacksonville is going to be over until this phase of college football is over with, and who knows how long that's going to last. So for at least the foreseeable future, it will be in Jacksonville for a long time. What are your initial thoughts on it that's going to Tampa?
I'm not surprised by it at all. It's the money behind it. And I also think they didn't want to give the two programs a chance to have a home and home because they would get a taste of it and see that, and the fan bases would get a taste of it and compare it to, I don't know. It's a tradition to go to Jacksonville and do the cocktail party. But last couple of times I've been down there, unless Jacksonville changes, I'm talking about the city. Forget the stadium, which was a dumpster when we went. You have to go outside the stadium to get to the other side of the stadium, and get back in. All that, I'm sure, is going to be a great experience. But the city of Jacksonville really doesn't do anything to turn, to make it more of an event. There's a huge parking lot, and everybody sits out there and tailgates out in the middle of a blacktop parking lot. And downtown Jacksonville is not a great place. So I'm in favor of it going to home and home. But it doesn't surprise me. And the stadium capacity, I guess it's the same because they're all NFL type of stadiums, right? So,
obviously Mercedes-Benz is going to be much bigger than Tampa and Jacksonville. Jacksonville's one of the smallest NFL stadiums
in the 60s, right?
It might be down. It might be in the 50s.
Well, it might be whenever it was under construction. But regardless, to me, it's follow the money, and I agree with you. Until the money changes on this thing, we're not going to get a home and home type of rivalry.
No,
and it's not going to be moved out of Jacksonville.
Right. It's going to be very strange having the game not played in Florida, like it's going to be in Atlanta. That is a very that one to me is going to be the weirdest one. The Tampa one makes sense. The game has been played in Tampa before Jacksonville was I guess, agreed upon neutral site. So Tampa one, it'll be different, but I mean, it's played in Florida. It'll have Florida weather to it. Won't be that a lot of difference. But now we're going into a dome inside downtown Atlanta for the cocktail party. I don't know if the cocktail party name is going to follow into Atlanta, because if that's the case, what a wild, wild game that could possibly be.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's a good point. I live outside of Tampa, and there's more to do to me in Tampa around the stadium and Del Mabry Highway and all that kind of stuff than there is even to me. I'm from Atlanta. That going down there and on the pavement all day and no, I'm just not interested in all that, man. I'm just
and also like late October, early November in Georgia, it sucks. Like we're recording this on a Wednesday. It was dark and overcast, and more than likely that's gonna be. I know it's a dome, but I'm just looking at it from a fan experience. That's what it's gonna be like the entire time. It's just a very odd. Atlanta was a very odd choice. I mean, I get it from the perspective of, hey, this is going outside of Jacksonville. It needs to go somewhere else. Neutral site. Let's take Atlanta. Makes sense, but really weird. What a weird flavor in the history of this rivalry. It's going to be a little odd seeing that. And honestly, I'd like to go just to see what it's like, because is it going to be 50-50 right down, goal post to goal post? Or is it going to be like a Georgia home crowd, like it's almost like Sanford Stadium?
Yeah, I don't know how that – I would imagine it's going to be – they're going to try to keep the flavor of the game the same. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I would imagine more of that 50-50.
Yeah, and here's the other thing about Jacksonville, and we both saw it with our own eyes. And I always heard it was like kind of a rumor amongst the students. I never knew if it was true or not. But Georgia, it's a tradition. It's a rite of passage. If you go to the University of Georgia, that you go down at least one time to the Georgia-Florida game. And it's easy to get tickets through the university, but you have to pay for your room and board and a way to get down there. And, that's just kind of the way it is. You go to Fraternity Beach, whatever. Florida, they bus the kids
Yes.
down there on buses. We saw them file out of
Yeah.
buses. It's
Like
disgusting.
7 or 8 huge buses, and it may have been more.
Yeah.
We just saw 7 or 8. Yeah, they bust their students in.
Yeah.
There's no
It's
for the
kind of
students.
bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see it in Atlanta, Tampa. It'll be roughly I think it'll be exactly the same. Might be a little different because you're playing in Tampa. To your point about Jacksonville not being anything around, supposedly, and we'll see if it happens. Still early stages of all this, but evidently, if you ever been to a Braves game in their new park at Truist Park, they're going to have like a battery type area around that, which could be good, but also at the same time, if it's the cocktail party, could be really bad and really seedy really fast. So
Yeah.
we'll see if they fix that or not.
It could become the Landing 2.0, and that was a place that last time I went to the Landing, that was a place I'd already gotten too old for that stuff. That was not for me anymore.
So yeah, I mean, we could see it go either way. There was something else that we were going to bring up, and I totally forgot. SEC. Let's talk about that real quick. By the way, if you made it this far, 16 minutes into the video, like, subscribe, comment. We're on Terminus Sports _ATL on all social media platforms: Instagram, X, that used to be Twitter, TikTok. We still have a big following on TikTok, so keep following us over there. Let's talk about the SEC standings a little bit. So right now, as we sit, Georgia has Florida. That has their last away game is against Ole Miss, and then we go. We have Tennessee, we have UMass, and we have Tech. Georgia is going to be favored in all those games. They should win all those games. I saw nothing special out of Ole Miss last week when they played Oklahoma. If that's the type of performance they're going to play against Georgia, Georgia should win fairly easily. Tennessee, I know a lot of people are probably going to do hand-wringing like they're doing right now for the Florida game about Tennessee, probably more so. Don't think Tennessee's – they might be a playoff team, but they're not that good. So I think Georgia should win that game. Tack is tack. So anyway, Georgia should win out. So that means Georgia is going to be the top-ranked SEC team with one loss being to Alabama, a game they shouldn't have lost, and miss the SEC championship as it sits. It would be we're banking on A&M to lose a game and then LSU to lose to Alabama. I don't think that's going to happen. The A&M and Texas one, more of a chance that A&M loses that game. LSU losing to Alabama at night in Death Valley seems really unlikely, but anything could happen.
They're playing at, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but aren't they playing at A&M?
The Texas and A&M game, yeah, which makes it harder. But I mean, Texas is. I think, and I could be totally wrong, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when it comes time to talk about that slate of college football week. I don't think A&M is as good as everyone how their record and their perception is right now. I don't think A&M's that great, and I don't think LSU is either. But LSU, they should be better than Alabama. I don't know, but it's just a lot harder. So anyway, Georgia would be the top-ranked team, miss the SEC championship, and would be the 5 seed in the playoff. Again, this is why you shouldn't have automatic bids to the playoff. The whole system's flawed. But if it is flawed, it works out perfectly for Georgia, because Georgia would play Boise State or whoever the 12 seed is. That could be Army, could be Boise State, could be UNLV. It could be a bunch of mid-level programs that Georgia would get at home. Georgia should win that, and then they would play the Big. I think it would be the Big 12 champion as it sits right now. It could change, but it would be the Big 12 champion. Again, the Big 12 not good. Colorado is is near the top right now. So what do you think about that? And give us your
we talked about this before the season started. Some of these early games in the playoffs, because of the automatic burst or whatever it is, and having the what do they call them? The non-Power 5 team automatic.
Yeah, the G5.
Yes, to get them invited. You're going to have some of the games that are almost unwatchable. I mean, if it does play out the way you say, Georgia ends up playing a BYU or
BYU's in the Big 12.
Well, whatever, whoever.
UNLV would be more.
And they have to come to Sanford Stadium, and it's probably going to be a night game.
Right.
That to me is not. I mean, it'll be fun because Georgia's playing it, but those are not competitive games. And if you're going to do TV, you're going to have an audience tuning out at halftime. So that's going to have to be as we move forward. This is not going to. The playoff system is not going to go away. It's probably going to be expanded.
Yeah, it's going to be expanded to 16.
But as we go forward, this automatic bid type of stuff is what it really is leading to is super conferences. And I think if you're SEC and the Big Ten got together, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see that happen sooner rather than later. And is a super conference of some sort. So this thing's getting crazy. But yeah, the fact that Georgia can sit out of the as you and I both said at the beginning of the year, one could look at this and say, hey, conference championships don't necessarily – they matter, but they don't matter like they used to.
Right.
And you're better off not having to play in that game. Hence, your ass gets penalized like Georgia did, going from number 1 to number 6. So, to me, sitting it out and playing some Sisters of the 14 and letting our guys rest, I'm all for it. So, that's what my thoughts are if it plays out this way. And I have no problem with Texas. Of course, we'd want to play in it. But if it plays out where it's a Texas LSU or Texas A&M LSU, that should be interesting. It's going to feel weird. It's really going to feel strange.
Yeah. And think about this too. Notre Dame's still kind of in the mix in here, and it can really get confusing on what's going on because is Notre Dame going to become the 5 seed then, or do they become the 12 seed, the 11 seed? It gets very confusing when all this. I know it's all going to play out here in the next couple of weeks. We're now in the last month of college football, which is really sad. It just arrived and now it's gone. Anyway, it's going to get a lot confusing. It's going to be played out. We'll see. But Georgia, there is a great thing if you win the SEC championship. If you lose, it's a terrible thing. There is way more risk at losing the game than winning the game. And to me, that's really silly. You should want to incentivize both teams to play in an extra game. So to me, it makes no sense why we're even having the SEC championship and why we're even the loser gets penalized way more often. And by the way, it's happened since the inception of the 14 playoff. Ever since Georgia, you can point to last year in 2017. Think about Alabama got to sit at home while Wisconsin and Ohio State, that was the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country at the time. Wisconsin barely lost. Wisconsin was out of the playoff, and Alabama got in. But it's been like that over and over again. And honestly, if Georgia probably would have 3 national championships if that didn't happen. So we'll see how this all plays out. But if you're a Georgia fan, obviously we're rooting to win out and win every game that we ever play. But it would be kind of nice just to sit at home and kind of lick our wounds a little bit and get healthy and go on this playoff run with a really easy seeding to get into the Final Four. Yeah,
no, I agree. But that is the main thing. There's so much confusion. Just win out, so you're guaranteed a spot in the playoff, and let whatever happens after that happen. But because I will tell you, a person that we both like, Dean Legge, he had a breakdown of the 12-team playoff as it stood right now, and I appreciated him doing that. and like explaining it all. At the end of it, I got to be honest, I was like, I'm not exactly sure. You have to watch it like 3 or 4 times, and maybe I'm just not very bright. But it's confusing to me how all this is working with.
I have a little bit of an understanding of it because of the college football video game and just kind of playing it and seeing how it works. But again, it's extremely flawed. And if you throw Notre Dame in the mix, the whole thing gets all out of whack. On the video game, the computer doesn't know how to deal with it. So I don't know how humans, if a computer can't deal with it, I don't know how humans are going to be.
That's the reason you leave it out of human hands, right? As much as you possibly can.
Yeah, which is why the BCS was the best system. Just saying. Just putting it out there. We should go back to it. All right. Going back to the game. Florida has a little bit of hope, and I know I keep saying that. I watched the Kentucky game, so you don't have to. I watched it, and I saw the final score, and I went, oh, fuck. Georgia's in trouble. Like, Florida actually might be a little better than everyone thought. Wow, oh, my God. I watched the game, and let's take these all in consideration. Kentucky was on the road. They just lost to Auburn, by the way, at home. So put that back in the burner. They got 3 turnovers to 1. So it's a 3-to-1 ratio. DJ Lagway threw an interception, which was like almost like, what are you doing? Threw it straight to the guy on a seam route. It was a terrible throw. But again, it was on Kentucky's end of the field. Kentucky, whenever they turned the ball over, Florida got the ball in plus territory every single time. It was a 14-point game in the fourth quarter with like 8 minutes left to go. And then Kentucky turned the ball over. Florida drove, scored. They won by, 3 touchdowns. And then they scored a last-minute touchdown just to kind of rub salt in the wound. I don't think what I'm all trying to tell y'all is this. Florida might be improved. Florida might be a little bit better than everyone thought they were. And the transitive property, Florida fans I've seen on social media, they are using the transitive property. Again, there is no such thing as the transitive property. We all like to use it, but in college football, it does not exist.
Especially this year more than any other.
Exactly. And just because we struggled with Kentucky and Mississippi State and y'all played better in those games does not mean that it is those can be transferable. I watched that Mississippi State-Florida game. I watched it live because I knew it was the toilet bowl, and I was very excited to watch 2 bad SEC teams play each other. Mississippi State had every shot in the world to win that game. At one point, they had a 2-touchdown lead and should have won that game. But again, turned the ball over, dumb mistakes, stupid penalties, got them beat. All that being said, those are things that Georgia doesn't do. Now, does Georgia turn the ball over? Yes. But stupid mistakes, dumb penalties, Georgia does not do. They do not shoot themselves as bad as all these other teams have. So if you're banking on those, don't. I think Georgia should – if Georgia comes out and plays their A game, Georgia wins this thing running away, 30-plus points. We don't have to worry about it, kind of like how every other Georgia-Florida game has gone since Kirby's taken over. Whatever. If Georgia plays their C game, it's in the range of that, 16-point spread. And that's why I would kind of stay away from this line. If I'm a Georgia fan and I'm confident, I would kind of stay away from this line because it is within the range of Georgia playing a C game, a C- game. Carson Beck, Mike Bobo, things hadn't gone. They try to tune it up during the bye week. They haven't tuned it up all the way. Beck throws a dumb interception. The offense still hasn't put together a perfect game plan. And it's a 14-point game going into the fourth quarter. That can absolutely happen. So from my perspective, it just really dependent on can Georgia stop the run? And Bog is a good running back. I know I've been talking a lot, but Bog is a good running back for Florida, tough runner. Can we stop the run? Can we control the line of scrimmage? Florida's got a decent front seven. Can we, play well against them, and can we not turn the ball over? If all those things happen, Georgia wins this thing running away. If two of the three happen, it'll be a little tighter. If one of the three happen, Georgia should still win, but it'll be a lot tighter. Then you're talking about a knife fight. So those are my thoughts on it. Why don't you give us that?
Well, the biggest thing for me is it's going to be such a momentum game down there. It can be. It's really important that we take control of the game early on and don't give Florida any hope.
Right.
And then all those things that you said, to me, we've got to do a better job of being consistent and running the ball and controlling the line of scrimmage on offense. Hope our receivers can kind of not drop as many balls and limit Florida and Lagway being able to run it. So those are a lot of ifs. But to me, Georgia, I still am going to have to see a game where Georgia puts it all together before I'm going to say, Georgia's played their best game. And for that reason, I think it's going to be sniffing this line. I think Georgia wins this game, but 37-20, Georgia, something in that range. I think they might cover.
Let me write that down. I wasn't prepared. Hold on. Okay. You said 37-20.
I did.
Georgia. Wait, hold on. When I hit 6 instead of 7. Again, I was taking my daughter to the park this afternoon, and I drove by Buttsmere, and I heard the voice of God yelling. And that was Kirby Paul Smart. And he was Andrew Paul Smart, sorry, but Kirby. He was yelling, and he did say something that kind of worried me a little bit. And I looked at my girlfriend and went, "Ooh, man, not good." He goes, "You guys are panicking. You're not doing what you need to do." And he was talking about the special teams. We'll get to that in a minute. Georgia should win this game. Georgia should win it by a lot. Georgia's way more talented than Florida. Florida, hold on, I'll tell you. Florida, on the blue chip ratio, which is basically my Bible on anything, Florida is a 63% blue chip ratio. Georgia is over 80%. Georgia, again, should win this game just based alone on talent. But Billy Napier has his back against the wall. The Florida guys know that. The team knows that. I'm not going to be shocked at all because they did it last year with ETN. You remember that play where it was a direct snap and Mertz was under center and they snapped it to ETN and we snuffed it out on 4th down?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
They're gonna do shit like that. And they might do it on special teams and they might get us because we're panicking, evidently, is what Kirby said. So I'll take us to win 30. I'm going to do your 38-17.
Wow, we're pretty close on our scores.
Yeah, we're 1 point difference. 1 point on Georgia and 3 points on Florida's. But I do kind of have a little bit of a worry that they're going to kind of punch us in the mouth a little bit, and we're going to kind of be staggering for a minute, and it'll kind of be mid-second quarter toward the end where Georgia starts flexing its muscles, which usually happens in this game. I wouldn't be surprised, though, and this is where, by the way, this is why I'm not too confident in my score prediction. I think we both are fairly confident Georgia's going to win, right? What would you say percentage-wise that Georgia's going to win?
I would say I'm a not at least 90% chance that Georgia.
I think Georgia wins 99.9%. If we played it 100 times, 99.9% of the time they're going to win. So I'm not super duper worried about losing to Florida. Maybe I will be in the third quarter, but I can see DJ Lagway because everyone's talking about, oh, he's a cool customer. These big moments. He went up to Knoxville and played a pretty good game. They struggled. And Tennessee's defense is good, but they're not elite. And he didn't play great. And I could see this because Aaron Murray talked about it on his podcast with T-Bob. That is a very surreal moment whenever you get into Jacksonville and you see the 50-50 down the goalpost. And it's Murray called it a pinch me moment that you're at one of the pinnacle points in college football. And for a guy that's only played 4 games or however many he started, it could be like a whoa, holy shit moment. He just pisses down his leg. And then also on the other hand, Carson Beck played really well last year. And he's back home. He wants to put on a show. And I forgot to mention this to you, but if Carson Beck wants to be one of the top NFL quarterbacks taken in the draft, he's got to play better.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. He said that. He knows that.
And he knows that.
It's not only to be drafted, but to help this team get where it needs to go, he's got to play better.
Absolutely. And he has a talent, and maybe he needs to dump the girlfriend and get rid of the Lambo, put it in a parking deck somewhere for the next couple of months. I don't know. But because of it's his home team or hometown, he played good there last year. Maybe, just maybe, and having that bye week and Bobo changes some things schematically and helps the receivers and helps Beck out, maybe Georgia finally has that game. But again, for right now, I just don't – my confidence level with this offense is so low compared to what it used to be. So that's why I picked Georgia 38-17 because I think Georgia's good and they're more talented. They should win. But because of all these things that have happened, I don't really know what the final outcome of the game is.
Yeah, no, I would say the offense is underperformed based upon expectations. Maybe those expectations were unfair. I know at the beginning of the year I said it could be one of the best offenses Georgia's ever had. We haven't seen that yet. I'll leave it at that. And it would be nice to see it against a big rival.
Yeah, it would be. And Curry Smart at the end of the Texas game in the locker room, he said, we're ascending and we still haven't played our best game on offense, defense, and special teams. And he goes, we're a jet airplane. We're going up. So, and he's hitting that home. He's said that and the players have said that. So maybe this is the game where they kind of put everything together. We'll see. I don't know. But I think we both will say on our recap, Georgia won and there's things to be worked on, which I'll take. As long as we beat Florida, I don't give a shit if it's by 1 point or a million.
This year, just put it in the W column and move on, man. That's what I like.
No, I totally agree. All right. Anything to wrap it up?
Nope.
All right. Check out us on Terminus Sports _ATL on Twitter, X, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, remember to like and subscribe. Give us your score predictions. What do you think we missed? What do we got right? Why are we doubting Florida so much? I don't know. Whatever, because I know there's a lot of Georgia fans right now munching really hard online, which is funny. I get it. It's the boogeyman. So check us out there. Our presenting sponsors, Unit Shippers Atlanta. Give us a pitch.
We work with small to medium-sized clients who have shipping needs, either small pack or all the way up to full truckload and less than truckload. So feel free to give us a call at Unit Shippers Atlanta and ask for Holland Martin.
All right. As for Holland, hate Florida and go Dawgs. See you on the other side.
See ya.